presenter is Bohdan Kuryliak. He is a PhD student at the University of Zurich in Switzerland, and he's lecturer in New Testament at the Ukrainian Adventist Theological Institute. His brother Ihor was going to be here too, but he was unable to because of some visa issues. He's also a PhD student at the University of Zurich, a lecturer in Old Testament at the Ukrainian Adventist Theological Institute, and a lecturer at Central Asian Adventist Seminary in Kyrgyzstan. We're very happy to hear Bohdan speak today on Daniel and Revelation, Blasphemy in the Cosmic Conflict.
Greeting everyone. It's a great honor to be here and to have opportunity to present our research. The topic of our study is Daniel and Revelation, Blasphemy in the Cosmic Conflict. Studies of blasphemy in the book of Revelation are usually discussed in isolation from the book of Daniel, which provides an incomplete picture of this topic. Accordingly, the purpose of this study is to define the meaning of blasphemy in the cosmic conflict against God in both books, the book of Daniel and Revelation. The realization of this goal involves the solution of the following tasks. Highlight the meaning of the blasphemy in the Old and New Testament. Analyze the meaning of the terms denoting blasphemy in the book of Daniel and Revelation. Characterize the different meanings of blasphemy in the biblical apocalyptic books. Find continuity and development of the theme of blasphemy, and establish the place of blasphemy in the cosmic conflict against God. The meaning of blasphemy in the Old Testament. The theme of blasphemy in the Old Testament can be found in the biblical laws where two verbs are used, kalal and nakal. The verb kalal in Exodus chapter 22-27 can mean not to neglect, despise, scorn, or make God little, which can often be expressed through words. In another passage, Leviticus 24 from 10 to 23, the verb nakal together with kalal conveys the idea of Israel's disdain for God. This text also says that to blaspheme and curse the Lord in the people of Israel was to deny his authority and reject his law. Therefore, blasphemy in the Old Testament was manifested through insolent actions and disparaging words towards God. The meaning of blasphemy in the New Testament. The blasphemy in the New Testament has three aspects. First, term blasphemia may mean to speak against someone in such a way as to harm or injure his or her reputation. The second aspect of the meaning of blasphemy is the appropriation of divine prerogatives. And third aspect of the meaning of blasphemy is the persecution of the followers of Jesus Christ. The blasphemy in the books of Daniel and Revelation. The studies of blasphemy in the book of Daniel can be divided into two parts. Blasphemy in the historical part, Daniel from 1st to 6th chapters, and second, blasphemy in the prophetic part, Daniel from 7 to 12. The theme of blasphemy in the last book of the New Testament can be divided into two aspects. First, blasphemy committed by people, and second, blasphemy committed by the Antichrist. This division corresponds to the two parts of the book of Daniel. First, blasphemy of the people. The theme of blasphemy in the historical part, Daniel from 1 to 6, is first raised in Daniel chapter 3. The verb blasphemeo, or noun blasphemia, is used in a decree issued by King Nebuchadnezzar after the miraculous rescue of 3 Jewish youths from a fiery furnace. The decree says that no one, under pain of punishment, has the right to blaspheme against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In addition, in Daniel 3, blasphemy can be seen in the words and the actions of King Nebuchadnezzar himself. The very idea of setting up a golden idol and making everyone worship it is blasphemous in itself, since it challenges the God of Israel, who according to the precepts of the Decalogue is the one who is worthy of worship. The Babylonian king, having installed an image made entirely of gold, contrary to what God revealed in Daniel chapter 2, decides to oppose God's plan and establish his own kingdom forever. In other words, Nebuchadnezzar puts himself in the place of God and takes on his prerogatives. The next instance of blasphemy in the historical part of the book of Daniel can be seen in the story of Belshazzar in Daniel chapter 5. The Babylonian king decides to bring to the idolatrous feast the vessels from the temple of God in Jerusalem, which Nebuchadnezzar had brought earlier. This becomes a blasphemous act, leading to the direct intervention of God and the subsequent death of the king. The blasphemy of Belshazzar becomes a type of a blasphemy of the Antichrist. In Daniel chapter 6, there is the last case of blasphemy described in the historical part. Daniel chapter 6 depicts the opposition of two laws, God's law and human law. Following the decree of Darius, Daniel would have violated at least 3 commandments of the Decalogue, the first, the second, and the fourth. Violation of all these 3 commandments is idolatry. By issuing a decree, the king committed blasphemy. He took the place of God. For the first time, the blasphemy of the people in the book of Revelation occurs in the 2nd chapter. Jesus addresses the church in Smyrna and says the following words: I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander, blasphemy, of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. The actions of the Jews led to persecution and suffering. That's why for John, those who denounce Christians thereby denounce the God to whom they bear witness, so he calls it blasphemy. The following verses, which describe the blasphemy of people, are in Revelation chapter 16. John writes about the 7 bowls of God's wrath that will be directed against the sinners of all the earth before the second coming of Jesus. People blaspheme God doing 3 plagues: bowl of the 4th angel, bowl of the 5th angel, and bowl of the 7th angel. In this case, blasphemy is a hateful curse against God. Blasphemy of the Antichrist. Blasphemy in the prophetic part, Daniel from 7 to 12, is found in the actions of the little horn, Daniel 7 and 8, and the king of the north, Daniel 11. An analysis of the characteristics of the little horn in Daniel 7 and the beast from the sea in Revelation 13 shows that this is one and the same power. Since, as Daniel 7 and Revelation 13 say, the ultimate goal of blasphemy is God himself, everything directly associated with God is affected. This includes the kingdom and authority of God, God's people, God's law, and God's temple. First, kingdom of God and power. The book of Daniel is permeated with the theme of God's kingdom and authority. This is especially illustrated in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, where both Nebuchadnezzar's dream and Daniel's vision culminate in the establishment of God's eternal kingdom. In the prophetic part of the book of Daniel, the little horn tries to counteract the establishment of God's kingdom. Chapter from 8 to 12 show that behind the earthly kingdoms and wars, there is a global cosmic spiritual conflict between the forces of good and evil. In the book of Revelation, John also describes this spiritual battle, Revelation 12, and points out that to the beast from the sea, the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. This is reminiscent of Christ receiving authority from the Father. The worship of the beast to the beast from the sea is related to the throne motive and is opposed to the call to worship God in Revelation 14:7. So, both the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation depict a spiritual cosmic conflict in which the devil challenged God's authority and desired to take God's throne. These actions are inherently blasphemous, as they infringe on divine prerogatives and contradict the fundamental principle that only God is worthy of worship. Second, God's people. The book of Daniel and Revelation shows that one aspect of blasphemy is the persecution of the people of God. Daniel 7:21 says that the little horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them. Also, Daniel 8 and 11 depict the persecution of the saints by the little horn and the king of the north. In Revelation 13:7, we find the same picture. Everyone who does not want to worship the image of the beast in danger of being killed. Revelation 13:15. Revelation 12 clearly shows that the devil, in his struggle against God after he failed to destroy Christ, directed all his fury against the people of God. Thus, in persecuting the children of the Lord, he is acting against God himself, which, according to the New Testament definition, is blasphemy. Third, God's law. The little horn opposing God shall think to change the times and the law. Daniel 7:25. The context shows that we are talking about God's law. The passage in Revelation 13, where the beast from the sea persecutes the children of God, is also in the context of God's commandments. The dragon persecuting the woman went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. It's important to note that Scripture portrays God as the only lawgiver who has the power to change the law. James 4:12. Therefore, when the little horn attacks God's law and tries to change it, it puts itself above God and thus commits blasphemy. And fourth, God's temple. The blasphemy of the Antichrist is also shown in the attack on God's sanctuary. The temple and its service play an important role in the book of Daniel, especially in the Daniel 8. The little horn's actions are attempting to render the ministry in the heavenly sanctuary ineffective. The book of Revelation also depicts the attack of the Antichrist on the heavenly sanctuary. The passage Revelation 13:6 says, "It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven." The Greek text uses the word skene, a tent, tabernacle, which primarily refers to God's temple, both earthly and heavenly. Thus, it becomes clear that the Antichrist usurps the priestly ministry of Christ and encroaches on the divine prerogatives of governing the universe and bestowing salvation on people. Since only Jesus is the high priest who has the right to perform the high priestly office, the act of the little horn is blasphemy. Conclusion. Summarizing all aspects of blasphemy, it can be argued that it means a hostile act directed against believers and or against God. Blasphemy is often expressed in words, but it also manifests itself in actions. By committing blasphemy, the person takes the side of evil in the cosmic conflict. This is clearly seen in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. The human dimension of blasphemy is expressed in the actions of kings and people, while the eschatological dimension of blasphemy is expressed in the actions of the Antichrist. Both in the book of Daniel and in the book of Revelation, blasphemy is directed against everything connected with the Lord. First, God's kingdom and authority. Second, God's people. Third, God's law. And fourth, God's temple. Thus, the analysis carried out shows that blasphemy is one of the themes that unites the book of Daniel and book of Revelation. In both books, blasphemy is part of the active actions of evil forces in cosmic conflict against God and His people. Thank you for your attention.